All right, welcome to the Bobby Carpenter Show, and it is a new look today, thanks to some planned power outages that I did not find out about until right before. I'm here at the Army with Schlegs, who you can see, like Step Brothers, is popping out behind me when the time is right. And normally I have Bill Bender on in the second segment here, but since we're running a little late today due to flat tires and everything else, we're going to welcome our guy Bill on right now. Mr. Bender, how are we doing today, sir?
Hey, I was running late too, so I'm glad we're all on the same page there. Good to be on with you guys. Welcome back. I hope you had fun last week. I missed you.
Yeah, it's tough. We had the Buckeye Cruise, so raised a ton of money for cancer, which was pretty sweet. Had a good time with that. And it's really cool because the new guys now, Bill, with the NIL, they can actually come on. So for the last 3 years, current players have been able to come on. And with that, then we get a chance to kind of experience them, get them involved. And so while NIL may have a lot of bad, that is one thing that has been pretty good is the charitable aspect and the fact that these guys can kind of get involved now.
No, and I appreciate what you guys do. My father passed away from cancer 2015, had a lot of work done at the James Hospital, and I know how important that is. And it really it just changes your outlook on a lot of things because you know how much work they put in, and for you guys to raise that money, I mean, for me, it definitely means a lot, and I'm sure a lot of other cancer survivors and people that are going through that will benefit from it. So as I saw that total going up while you guys were on the road, I was so impressed and definitely happy with what Ohio State's able to do with that.
Well, I appreciate it, Bill. So the start of I guess we got college basketball tournament. It's been in the full, week and a half, 2-week run here as the big boys are getting ready to go. The Power Four major conferences starting off this week. But also you have spring ball. And Ohio State's on spring break this week, but next week they'll be back at it. The question always is, like, at schools, how do you balance that, the excitement with potentially making the tournament, and especially in some of these SEC schools, but also then the kickoff of spring ball and how that looks?
Well, I know, where we grew up, I always look at the NCAA tournament and Selection Sunday as like the unofficial beginning to spring. You would watch the selection show, go outside, play basketball, maybe go down to the Lancaster outdoor courts and play. It got you excited because the weather was generally warm, and we're being teased with that a little bit here. And then on the football side, there's a lot of excitement around spring football. I know it's different, and we've talked about maybe the new NFL OTA model, but here in Ohio, whenever you think there's a lull, what happens this weekend? Eddie George all of a sudden is the head coach at Bowling Green. What a surprise announcement that was. Not surprised they hired Eddie George, but it's surprised in a good way that you get that kind of presence in the Mid-American Conference. And I know we talked about it briefly on 97.1 yesterday, but I think he's going to crush it there. I think he's going to do a really good job if you look at the track record from Tennessee State the last couple of years.
Yeah, I want you to follow up. I want Bob to follow up with Eddie because I'm going to ask you a serious question for everybody that's out there, whether you're male or female.
Oh, jeez.
To me, you said this is the undocumented start of spring. I think March Madness and the Masters is kind of like, the official start date for vasectomies, because I had one during that time because I thought, I'm going to be on the couch. I'm watching basketball. I'm watching golf. Why not throw some stuff on my balls, right? So the real question is, like, is that really where it is? Is that why behind it? Or is you think that it's because you have all these other factors of the Masters and basketball and spring football that it's the start of spring?
A little bit of all of the above. I mean, for me, I like working this week, during the day, and you'll turn on the TV and you'll hear a swish and you don't necessarily know who's playing some of the time, and you'll throw on a TV and I know we got games that started at noon today. I think it's one of my favorite times to work in that regard when the Big Ten tournament gets rolling. And I know Ohio State, I have them as the last team in right now. They've got to beat Iowa tomorrow. And then, go from there, maybe get a second win. It's going to be close. But, I mean, I found myself last night watching the games. I saw an underhand free throw shooter. Schlegs, I bet I don't think
oh, my gosh, yes.
You weren't an underhand free throw shooter, but I wonder if I bet you've tried it a few times.
Bro, Jackie Moon. I mean, amazing. If I played basketball, listen, I'd make sure I got 5 fouls. I'd be a rebounding, hustling fanatic, and I would shoot underhand, granny shot, free throws. That'd be amazing.
You would have 2 fouls pretty quick, I'm guessing,
Yes.
as well. So I don't, you would make the most out of those rebounds. But this is that week. And as you guys know, being an Ohio University grad, you get excited about the MAC tournament because I know from going down there, you were always excited about football. And I think that's changed a little bit now that the group of 5 gets a playoff team. But when basketball season rolled around in the MAC tournament, I have good memories of I missed Gary Trent by a few years. I know Bobby knows who he was. He was a beast at Hamilton Township. And, but they never went to the tournament when I was there. But in subsequent years, they've made a couple nice runs.
Absolutely. We used to have season tickets, Bill. My dad and my brothers would go down there to the Convo and always check out Gary and Gino Ford and that whole crew. Simmons, like it was a real fun time, real fun watch. And that's what the cool part is, obviously, about this NCAA tournament. Anybody can get in and anybody can get it done. And you talked about Ohio State being your last team in. Jake Diebler took over at the end of last year. And, unfortunately, at the end of Holtman, the last couple seasons, they had kind of swooned there in January. And they've had some issues with Deebs, but he's been able to kind of right the ship when they started to drift too much and always seemed to get the win when they really needed it. Obviously not a great performance against Indiana on the road. You felt like they had that one wrapped up. But how would you kind of grade his first full regular season performance?
I know Jake's a basketball guy at the core. I talked to you about that last year, knowing that my first newspaper job, believe it or not, was in Upper Sandusky, Ohio, out of school. And you have to explain to people, as you guys know, that Upper Sandusky is actually under regular Sandusky, and there is no Cedar Point in Upper Sandusky, but they love their basketball there. And I missed Jake and John by a year, the year that they won the state championship. I had gone on to a different job. But so it's my long-winded way of saying he's a point guard. He's a basketball coach's son. He coaches with a lot of passions. He knows the X's and O's being a point guard. I think it comes down to recruiting and NIL for the basketball program. In some ways, you look at Ohio State basketball, and I think Thad Matta almost spoiled us a little bit because they were automatic Sweet 16, had great NBA recruits, and it takes time to build that. But I think they've been competitive in spots, but what they're finding in this new Big Ten is you can't take a night off. I do think there'll be 10 or 11 Big Ten teams, maybe 10 in the tournament, which will make the next couple of days a lot more fun. I do like having USC and UCLA in the mix, UCLA in particular, although it's going to look weird saying, man, UCLA's in the Big Ten semis. That would be very strange.
Yeah, it is really strange. Well, let's go back to something you said earlier about Eddie George going to Bowling Green. One, we both know Eddie very well. But talk about his ability to compete in the MAC because, people develop, and Eddie's done a really, really nice job at Tennessee State developing, his players and being able to be successful there. How does that look now going to, Bowling Green in the landscape of the MAC and him being able to have early success?
Yeah, I mean, Dino Babers won 10 games at Bowling Green in 2015, and ever since they're 36-68. So
that's bumpy.
I mean, that tells you right there that you might as well try something different. And Eddie George he comes with a presence. He's one of those guys that around here, when you say Eddie George, what's the first thing I think of anyway is Heisman Trophy. And I don't remember the yardage total against Illinois, but I know it was a lot.
And he has a restaurant.
Yeah. And he has a restaurant, and he's great to talk to. So he's very personable, very humble. And I think that presence will resonate at least with high school coaches in Northwest Ohio. And once the kids start watching his clips from Tennessee and Ohio State, they're going to be like, wow, he still looks like Superman, by the way, too. So I do think he'll do well there. It might take a minute, but there's something to this. It's almost like the Deion Sanders effect with former NFL players coaching. But Eddie's done it the right way. He's gone through Tennessee State. That's not an easy job, and Bowling Green won't be an easy job. And I think he'll continue to work his way up in a MAC that you guys know that from watching the MAC. The MAC isn't one team has a ton more talent than everybody else. I love watching it because, 1 to 12, the talent's pretty even. It comes down to the execution.
So that's what I was going to ask you about, because Bowling Green, historic, like you look at some of the best, like it's right there by Toledo. They kind of play second fiddle to them. And, I think you have 6 MAC schools in the state of Ohio, and this kind of gives them a little differentiation. Bill, could you rank your top 3 or 4 MAC jobs? Because I don't know if BG's in it, despite the fact you mentioned Dino Babers, Urban Meyer. Like, there's been a lot of successful coaches come through there.
Yeah, and Urban was there. I believe I was a senior in college when Urban got there, and so he was just getting started, and they were probably not at the point where they should be. I think the top three in the MAC are Mac jobs with Northern Illinois out the door would be in any order, because I'm an Ohio grad and I'm going to put them one anyway. But I think Toledo's probably one with the sustained success that they've had from Jason Candle, Matt Campbell, even before that with Tom Amstutz. They had Chester Taylor when I was in college. Miami of Ohio is right there. You don't get called the cradle of coaches when you develop that many good coaches, good players. I was, again, in college when Big Ben was there. That was painful. And then Ohio. And I think a lot of that, you look at the coaches they've had in the last 25 years. And before that, the program was very down. But when you go from Jim Grobe to Brian Knorr to Frank Solich and Tim Albin, stability was something that we didn't dream of when I was down there until Jim got it rolling. And Frank kept that going for a long time. So those are the three. And if Bowling Green can squeeze in there, by the way, I remember a team with Josh Harris that was really good with BG, but they've had those blips, but it hasn't been consistent.
Don't laugh at that, because that was when they came down to Ohio State, Bill, and they almost beat us. I think it was 24-21 my sophomore year, and we had to find a way to scrape out a win. You were getting redshirted.
Well, I would ask you guys, since you went against MAC schools, was there a MAC school when you played or you've watched or had to prepare for where you were like, okay, we've got to come out ready to go? Was that the team that you guys played against where it was like, they look pretty good on film?
Well, Bowling Green was there. I think Marshall, when we played them, was still in the MAC, and we barely beat them. I mean, that was a couple years after Randy had come through. And AJ, so my brother played at Ohio University. I had a brother play at Marshall, one at Cincinnati. And so, Bill, like, those guys, when they would come into play, you knew you were getting their best shot. And you usually played with a lot of those guys in all-star games and everything else. And maybe they were, an inch or two too short or a step too slow, but they were really stinking good football players, and they had a lot of pride. I'm like, you're gonna have to go out there and beat them and out-execute them. They're not going to give you the game. And so just about every MAC team, when we would play them, you knew it was going to be tight. And no different. I think the year after we left, they played Northern Illinois, and like Doug Free, their left tackle, is starting for the Dallas Cowboys with me like 4 years later. So like they always have, and heck, Khalil Mack was from Buffalo. I mean, he's one of the best players in the NFL. So they have really good players in the MAC, and so you always have to remember that.
Yeah, I was going to say, when Ohio State played Buffalo, I had a good friend that I played high school ball with texting me during the game. He's like, who is this 45 for Buffalo? He is driving me crazy. And I was explaining to him, I was like, no, I think he was MAC Defensive Player of the Year last year. I didn't know he would go on to the NFL career that he went on. I remember him showing out that day. But yeah, it is. And I believe Ohio is coming to the Shoe next year. And those games, there was one that was very competitive when Jim Tressel was there. Ohio took that one into the third quarter. And then when I was in college, I think it was tied at halftime before the reality set in the second half. But, they'll get Ohio's best shot when they come up to the Shoe next year, I'm sure.
Coach Tress always liked to make the in-state schools feel good and not run it up on them. That's how I always thought about it. Hey, here's a question for you. So you got Coach Prime, you got Dion, you got Eddie George, you have Michael Vick getting a shot. Like, are we seeing like a trend for a school that wants to make waves, hiring somebody with that type of pedigree? Because the head coach is now more your head recruiter, CEO. We can build a staff around their presence. If we got to go do that, is that something that we're starting to see? And can we see more of that in the future?
I think Dion worked out. And some of that, now we're going to find out how much Dion works out without Shedeur Sanders and a Heisman Trophy winner and Travis Hunter, who he brought with him. But I was always kind of in the middle with him. I wasn't quite I didn't think it would be 12-0, but I didn't think it would be complete disaster. And that's probably where we're at with Dion. Now, is that going to work with Michael Vick? Is that going to work with Eddie? I don't know. But I think it's a good thing to have those kind of guys for nostalgic purposes for me, because it's easy to write about them. And I do think they do know football. They know what it takes to succeed at the highest level, and they seem genuine. And I think that's the difference between Eddie and some other ones, is, like I said, those couple years at Tennessee State where he's building, now he's taking the next step. And if that works out, maybe he'll take a next step after that. But I mean, former players in college, that happens everywhere. Everywhere in the Big Ten, we've seen that as well. So I do hope it works out. I hope it works out not too much when they play the Bobcats down in Peden Stadium. But I'm looking forward to seeing how he does.
All right, final one. I'm going to give you the over-under, Bill. Eddie George seasons at Bowling Green at 3.5.
I was going to say 3 or 4. So maybe 4, maybe 4. And then if he does well, because it probably takes at least 2 to 3 to get that rolling, maybe he gets them into that 8-9 win range, maybe more. And then if he's successful, then a lot of those MAC coaches, they do take that next step to the Big Ten. Or, where does he end up down the road? And it doesn't hurt Ohio State at all to have a former player crushing it in the MAC. So I think it's one to watch. Definitely excited to see. I did peek at the schedule, by the way. I know we didn't talk too much about this, but Ohio plays West Virginia in week 2. So that means Rich Rod is going to be coming back to Ohio and hit some brutal ones with Michigan. But when he comes to Peden Stadium, West Virginia is coming to Peden. I may have to make my way down there that weekend. I'm excited about that one. I mean, we don't get too many. I think the last huge opponent like that we beat there was Pitt way back. So I think I'm going to have to drag Grant down to that game.
That'll be a good one. Well, Bill, that should be a heck of a time, a real fun one. I'm glad you dropped that nugget on me because I had no idea you got the Mountaineers traveling down the river, down the Ohio and up the Hocking to the Harvard on the Hocking, better known as Ohio University. Week 2, we'll have to stay locked in on that. I can't wait to talk to you more about it. So we appreciate your time today. Enjoy it. Go do some great things. Enjoy some of this beautiful Ohio springtime weather.
I will, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. Thanks again for all the money raised at the Buckeye Cruise, and I'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely. That's our guy, Bill Bender, one of the best. So you see him here. All right, I want to tell you guys about this before we get rolling. Attention, athletes, parents. Protect what matters most with Export mouthguards, trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Export mouthguards are scientifically tested to absorb those high-impact hits, protect both your teeth and whatever he's got left in his brain. Export mouthguards, they have 3 layers of advanced protection. Patented use of carbon fiber. They 3D print those bad boys right to your own unique smile for more protection, max comfort, better performance, clear communication. This means you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby. Save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. More of the Bobby Carpenter Show coming up next. Eating. Welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show. And my man Schlegs, afterwards, we're going to get in the sauna and hang out a little bit together. I already got a shower, but the reason I'm here, there's no power at my house. So I took a nice ice cold shower. Going to get in the sun after this. Schlegs is talking about throwing another piece of wood on the sauna.
Let's get it to 220.
But all the saunas I know are electric. I mean, is this like a wood fire?
Yeah,
in there?
it's a fire. Oh, yeah, it's amazing. Hey, Brian Peters, shout out my guy. So we had Cade Stover in here this morning at the Armory, John Simon, Brian Peters, myself. We're getting super bumpy listening to John's, like, I think Skrillex was on there, like songs I haven't heard. Urban Meyer's favorite song in the locker room, Porn Star Dancing. I think I heard one time.
It's ironic now.
Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, so all those things are going on. But yeah, Brian has a sauna, and he does like sauna and breath work all over the country for a lot of different people. But it's parked right outside in the Armory. And so we got in because I was like, Kate, we're trying to teach Kate a lot of stuff. And then I had the Fury today. And I'm like, hey, who needs to get a drip in after training? Boom. That's what they say. That's what all the kids say these days.
Get a drip.
Yeah. So I had a couple of them get in there, and I was just like, Jay Hooten, who's our director of sports performance, who was RGA when we played at Ohio State, because Bob would rip the door off the hinges. And then, but guess who was in there? Jay Hooten, like literally counting all of the weights on every rack because our head strength coach made him do that. He's here. I was like, hey, why don't you throw another log, in the fire for the sauna? Bob's like, what? I'm like, yeah, because it's a huge wood burning sauna, and it's awesome. And it's like probably 220 degrees in there. It'll really sting the nose hairs.
Can't wait. Hopefully it'll melt your face, literally.
It'll melt your face off.
Get that
literally
drip
coming out.
Get that drip, is what the kids say.
Face.
And since we're doing that, let's pull up the Eddie full circle here, because if you didn't know this about Eddie George, Schlegs, and I don't
10
know
inches around.
Well, he's got a nice girthy, thick cylinder, as you always talk about.
He does.
Big, sweet arms. But Eddie George's first touchdown, do you know who it was against?
Yes, I do, because I've seen all the stuff.
The Bowling Green Falcons. And so him getting hired by Bowling Green, as we were just talking to Bill Bender, real full circle moment as we dive into that. Kind of crazy to think that was the case. But so he's having a Buckeye in the Buckeye State now. And you look at some of the other former Ohio State players, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, Alex Golish, who I just saw was on All About the Team with Tress. He was just dumping some of that out. Who's at South Florida? Marcus at Notre Dame just said that.
I'm sorry.
Now Eddie George at Bowling Green. I'm trying to think if there's any other Buckeyes that are coaching that I'm. Mike Vrabel, head coach of the Patriots. Obviously, that's a BFD. So that's just off the top of my head, the people that I'm thinking about. But a number of guys out there in these big prominent roles. And so when you think about Ohio State, those guys are at their current jobs and they're going to be supporting that. But I think Schlegs is just such a great recruiting tool when people see that. Like, you have guys here that maybe you want to get into the media, maybe you want to get into coaching. Like, those fields are going to be predominantly available to you, maybe more so than they would be somewhere else.
I think part of that, we've talked on the show, it's about the development of being a pro and life after ball, which they do through Real Life Wednesdays. Ryan Stamper did that when he was here with Urban. Oh my gosh, how did I just blank on that? That's
Fernando?
No.
CJ.
CJ Barnett, my guy.
Yeah.
CJ runs that now, does a phenomenal job. But like, there's avenues for you to be able to be successful for life after football when you're done being a Buckeye, which also goes into the value proposition of why you should want to stay being a Buckeye. Here's something else I just thought about when we were talking to Bill Bender about the success of Eddie George. And
Bender, I don't even know her.
Yeah, Richard. I didn't even call him Richard that entire segment.
Because we're two dudes, one camera right now.
Yeah, no doubt. So, but here's the thing. When you have those kind of relationships, like, guys talk, people talk. So having a kid that's in state or somebody that Ohio State is evaluating that's a really damn good player, maybe they could be a 3-star guy. And they're like thinking like, oh man, could he be that guy here? But yet there's ties to Ohio. I guarantee you Eddie's going to have a great opportunity at those type of people because they talk, like they go to camps. All these coaches from Ohio come to Ohio State football camp when they come here. What a great way of showcasing that. Eddie's on the forefront of that. Who are they going to rather give a kid to in the MAC? They're like, hey, we can't really offer this kid, but he would be great for you, Eddie. Like, but that's how you do business.
Yeah. And I know that was a big deal. Like when Darrell Hazler was at Kent State, those guys would come here with press. It's like, hey, boom, you can't go with us. We can't take you all. Why don't you go there?
That elevated Darrell because then he went to Purdue.
Oh, yeah, went to Purdue. And even some of to a lesser extent when Fick was at Cincinnati, you know, it's like, hey, if he doesn't work out here, I go down to Cincinnati. You know they're going to do right by you. You got a great situation, great coaches. And so it's really a kind of a win-win for everybody here. So that's tremendous to see. Love seeing that as well. So Eddie George being at Bowling Green. I asked Bill the question, Schlegs, 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
Damn.
Because I think it's like, hey, if he's super successful, you take the under. If he's pretty successful, you take the over. If he's really bad, you take the under. If he's like, kind of mediocre, then you take the over. And so it's kind of binary with that, where I think he's going to be really good. Is he good enough to maybe have the job that he wants to leave after 3 years? Maybe not. And so maybe that job isn't even available. And one of the things when he came in his press conference, like he talked about changing the culture, changing the mentality, like the belief, the trust. This is where he wants to be, and getting those guys to buy in because, as Bill said, since Dino Babers had left, their record is not great.
Terrible.
And so you've got to recreate that culture of winning and get people to believe and be able to buy in to what they're going to win.
Yeah, terrible. That's Spanish for terrible. But I'd say this: the hard thing right now for him is portal's over. All those things have already happened. You're literally
What
going.
about second portal?
Oh, terrible.
Second portal. It's like a double rainbow schlag. Double rainbow.
All right. So that's gone. You're going right into spring football. What type of staff are you bringing with you? Right? Lessons learned of staff, like development and like who's loyal and who can coach ball and what are the things that he needs, evaluating the staff that's there. Like who's he bringing with? Tennessee has their own problems now because it's just so late in the game. And that kind of goes into, I like the over because really the first year right now, because you're coming so late to the dance is a little bit of a wash. Like, it's like, hey, how do I, but you know what? Kudos to Eddie when he was talking about that stuff is that has to be the focus. Like you got to win with who you got and you got to believe. I'm going to give you a prime example of this. And I guarantee you, I heard somewhere when they reached out to Urban about, hey, who should we hire at Bowling Green? He gave him one name. That was Eddie George. And I go back to Urban's first year at Ohio State.
When he told the story about how he got to Bowling Green?
No.
Have you ever heard this story?
No, keep going.
So he's at Notre Dame.
Oh, no,
this
yeah,
is one of the best.
Story,
yeah, of course. So he's at Notre Dame, and he calls his mentor, like the late, great Earl Bruce, R.I.P.
Yeah.
Earl Bruce, one of the best, guy that you absolutely love. So he calls his former mentor, Earl Bruce, and says, hey, Bowling Green just offered me the job. He's like, okay. He goes, Bruce, hey, I mean, let's go, buddy. Like, you have a chance to be head coach. Like, well, I don't think it's a very good job. They haven't been very good with the resources. He goes, of course it's not a good job. That's why they're calling you. If it was a better job, they'd be calling someone better. And he's like, well, okay.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit like, hey, when you get a chance to swing your sword, like Urban knows, like you can win anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, Darrell Hazel won at Kent State.
Yeah.
Like you can win anywhere. You got to get those guys to believe and then the recruits to believe.
And that's where, like, I honestly, in my opinion, probably Urban's best coaching job was that 2012 season because we went 6-7. And that's not a fault of Fick. All right. But we went 6-7. And you took literally the same group of guys and you go 12-0. You want to talk about, and I'm talking guys, you want to talk about a culture shift. You can't do that type of culture shift right now in 2025. It would be everywhere because there's social media. Praise God we didn't have it back then. But the workouts in the snow, and honestly, you go back and like you talk to
Drew Basil was lamenting it on the boat, how him and Ben Buchanan had to dress outside the whole month because they were kickers and specialists. He's like, John Simon's in there day two. Yeah. He just broke in and went. I'm like, I think Urban maybe appreciated that.
No, he did. He did. And all that happened because Corey Lindsley, Andrew Norton, like they were late for a meeting. And so like, boom, kicked everybody. But again, I go back to, honestly, in my opinion, that was probably Urban's finest coaching job was you went 6-7 to 12-0. You shifted the culture that needed to be shifted. Guys totally bought in, but it was his way of doing it throughout the season. I'm going to give you an example. This is one of the reasons that Urban was really good. There was a game. That's where championship water came from. We're playing Michigan State. And it was called the Chalice game. And I think on the mural, there might be just like a random chalice, right? Am I not? And again, when I think
it's
of
like the chalice emoji.
Yeah. When I think of chalice, like I think of like, I could be a really good chalice, like back, like behind the scenes dancer of a rap guy, just like, I'm just holding the chalice. You guys know the guy that I'm talking about in the rap videos. I could be that guy. But there was a chalice game. And that's where championship water came from. It was like, we're going to drink this. We're going to be champions. We're going to win. Boom. Everybody kind of did it together. And that's kind of how it started. But it was the belief of the guys that we are good enough if we go out there and execute. We played Michigan State at Michigan State. I believe it was that night. And we won a really physical game. And from then on, like guys just started believing. And it was with the guys that were already there. So there's also the mindset of it's not the player, it's the coach. The coach go develop the player and having a high demand on the coaching staff to go extrapolate the greatness from the players that allowed you to go be 12-0. And I honestly believe this, if we weren't like prohibited from playing in a bowl game that year, we would have won a national championship because we'd have played Notre Dame and we'd have beat Notre Dame.
Yeah, you would beat Notre Dame, and that's a function of, I think you beat that Michigan State team like 17-16. It was a 1-point game. It was a slug fight all the way to the end. Well, hey, it is March 11th. It's 3/11. That's a big day. We'll tell you why next, coming up here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back to the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Let's
Hey,
go.
listen, it's March 11th, which means it's 3/11. And I don't know if you realize this, Schlegs. 3/11 was a pretty significant down in distance in the Ohio State National Championship game against Notre Dame. Why don't we toss that up there, Pat, and take a look at old 3/11. And so we're just going to sit here and watch this as Pat runs it back, as you can watch the differing excitement of a guy who literally has your team with a chance to get a stop at 3rd and 11 to get the ball back. You're only up 8. It's one possession. And to watch Ryan run down there, giving the fist pumps the whole way. And Marcus, I've been on the other side of that too, where you watch that ball in there, you're like, oh, this is not good. And you can see 5 yards of separation, but it's 3-11 days. Like, so I wanted to make sure that we got there and celebrated the 3/11. Before we start getting in the chat, we're going to get a quick headline. So we have a nice long tailgate talk today.
Yeah, I will say this too, because Ryan hit this up on the deal. And it goes back to even the Texas game when they ran the screen and they practiced the screen all the time. And he's like, let's call it. They finally call it. And they had worked on this. And he went around the story on the Buckeye Cruise was about making that call in that situation. He's like, during the week, they went around, it's like, hey, if we got this look, do you feel good about this play? Do you feel good? And everybody's like, yeah, we feel good about that play. Play comes up. Don't hesitate. Call the play. That's why you watch film. That's why you believe. That's why you work on it. It was like, no, call the play. And it was that play. And then they executed. And again, part of the best part about that play is as you guys watch it, watch Trevion Henderson. He was up here at the Armory the other day.
Oh, stoned him.
I didn't talk to him about this play. I just talked to him about life. But boom, comes up, stones the dude to allow Will to step into that throw. And Jeremiah just does what he does, right? So honestly, but that's what it is. Like, I love that kind of approach in life. It's, hey, man, if you know the play to call the freaking play, right? So anyways, I don't know how to control volume.
That's all right. Don't hesitate.
I got a YouTube machine right here on the phone. I love you guys.
Watching yourself on the deal.
Watch myself do the deal.
On the Doomajig. All right. That's it for this. We got our headlines coming up. A couple of Buckeyes getting back together, reunited in the Big Apple, and I'm here for it all day long.
Welcome to Big Play, the fastest growing sports media company in America.
I'm gonna keep it straight with you. The reason you should watch our show is because I look good, baby.
Come get some!
Join our millions of fans for live sports talk shows hosted by the top former athletes and sports personalities in the industry.
Ohio, it's my home state.
Obviously, I'm a diehard Cleveland sports fan.
Watch what you want, where you want, when you want. Welcome to Big Play.
Make sure you tune in.
I love you, Cleveland.
Yeah. All right, welcome back to the Bobby Carpenter Show. We got our headlines right now, and a couple of Buckeyes are getting back together in the Big Apple. Justin Fields, who started in Chicago, it was kind of a mess there, didn't really work out, was in Pittsburgh, showed some good signs last year, but now is going to be reunited with Garrett Wilson with the Jets. Aaron Glenn's their head coach there. I play with AG in Dallas. I love what he's about. They gave Justin a pretty nice little contract, a 2-year, $40 million deal, $30 million guaranteed.
That's better than a poke in the eye.
It really is. So, I mean, whether or not you do anything, as long as you don't fall out of bed in the morning, I mean, you're going to get $30 million. But he's really going to – what he wants is a viable chance to start. So they've got some weapons. They need to revamp that offensive line. But they're going to have more weapons than he had in Pittsburgh. I think the offense will be more coherent. And I love Aaron Glenn as a coach. So I love this for a guy getting back with one of his former wide receivers, so those guys can work together.
I think, you come in, you have an opportunity, you're on your third team, and you're hungry. And I think, you got a young, hungry team. That's what you want. He has a chip on his shoulder. And Coach Mick has always said this, you have nothing to let's see, what do you say?
If you don't have nothing to prove,
you never improve. And I'm sorry, man. I'm sitting right next to you. I don't know. You're staring at the green dot at the top of the thing. I'm just trying to think about stuff. You making fun of me. I can't cognitively remember things. I've been grinding since 5 a.m. I don't even know what's going on. But that's kind of the point. The point is this. I think he's hungry. I think Garrett Wilson, they're already connected. They're going to want to go get extra work. And in that game, at that level, it's about, can you execute? Can you work on your craft all the time and just be pros? And guess what? It's fun and easy to be pros with your former teammates, especially ones when you come out of college, because you guys know everything about each other. And I think that this is a great fit for both, because Garrett, he's been having some really, really good years. But like when you have that, I don't know, that timing, that camaraderie, connectivity, kind of like this, like stepbrothers, like, hey, right? Like that's what it's about. I think I hope he's successful because I really like Justin. I like what he's about. And I'm hoping that the Jets can protect him, but also play great defense, because you're gonna have that in the AFC East.
Oh, they've got a solid defense. I think Jeremy Ruckert's still up there as well at tight end. So hopefully Ruck is still there.
Oh, yeah, he is there.
And that'd be nice.
Because Luke just took the deal in San Francisco. Luke Farrell, $20 million. I mean, honestly, let's go.
Getting dudes paid, man. The
Buckeyes.
I mean, the salary cap when I left, I think was $126 million. It's like $260 million now. So good for these guys. Happy to see them making money, and they deserve every penny. And hopefully, Justin, this is the realistic shot for him to go there, earn a starting job, and be able to kind of grow and spread and expand his wings. Jeremy Ruckert, Pat's just telling us, just got extended in New York.
Let's go.
So now, like, you literally are getting the whole gang back together. I'm telling you, man, like you said, that connectivity, trust, understanding, getting people integrated together. And I said this, like Aaron Glenn is, I mean, he was just with Dan Campbell as their D coordinator in Detroit. Him and Dan played together in college at A&M. Like, they're very similar dudes. Now, you say that, I mean, Dan Campbell's a 6'6", 250-pound Big Lebowski dude-looking guy, and Aaron Glenn's like a 5'8" black dude, but they're like the same guy when it gets down to it. They're tough, they're gritty, but they care about their guys, and they will infuse Justin with confidence, which any quarterback, you need to have confidence you're going to be there. And then, like I said, having Ruck and Garrett will help as well in a big way. All right, we're going to put a pin in that. We got our tailgate talk, our Real Truck tailgate talk coming up next. We're going to answer your questions. So listen, I know we've got a lot of stuff going on in the chat. We got some stuff about squats, the drip, anything else you want to throw out there. Get those questions fired up and get them ready, because we'll answer those coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
The Big Play Sports Network. Download the free app today to watch all of your favorite hosts on demand.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer-flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like... I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer-flavored beer. All right, so welcome into our tailgate talk brought to you by our friends at Real Truck. Hey, listen, go to realtruck.com, access your truck, Jeep or Bronco, bring that thing to life. I had my Jeep out yesterday, Schleich. It's the first time all year. It's nice. It's beautiful here in the state of Ohio. Good news is I'm paying a lot of money to go down to the Bahamas while it's still nice here. Then I get back and it's going to be cold. So I wish I could skip the niceness and then go down. One of the questions up at the top coming from Mellow7. A lot of you may be asking yourselves right now, why are Bob's and Schleich stacked up here? Two dudes, one mic, one camera. We've done this before at my house. That was by design. We had a scheduled power outage today at my house from approximately 9 to 2. Now, my lovely wife knows that I work from home a lot and I need functioning internet, which without power, you can't have the internet. So they left a voicemail for us, Schlegs, a couple of days back, to her recall. And I go, well, why am I just finding out about this at like 8:45 today? We'd already scheduled Bill Bender. We'd already set everything up. I didn't want to make an inconvenience to everybody else. I said, boom, I'll just slide over to the Armory and poof David Copperfield. We'll get that solved. There was a question also in the chat about something about squats.
Ooh, squats.
Pat, if you talked about that, like, widescreen, getting some squats going on here. And, it's like I actually did like full squats last week or on Sunday, which I hadn't done in a long time. I put 315 on the bar, which I usually like. I'm a 275 guy at this point, but I felt good. I was feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Got gassed up, and I'm watching this stuff on Instagram about people, lifting to high degrees of their max. I'm like, let's challenge it a little bit. I mean, I obviously had a lot left in the tank, but I hit about 4 to 6 of them, and felt pretty good about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so squats, like I squatted yesterday. Normally I do it on Tuesdays. We did it yesterday because we were doing velocity work, and I like to pair that with the lower body because of how Cade's doing it. But I posted on Instagram, Anthony Schlegel, we were doing dynamic effort squats, which was great. And then we did some Hatfield split squats, some unilateral stuff, and then some other things. And just super bumpy, really feeling it in my hamstrings and my glutes, you know. But no, I personally like to lift as heavy as I possibly can for as long as I can because I want to have good bone density, and honestly, I want to be gas station ready. That's what I'm wearing right now. Jailhouse strong. Listen, I lift in boots. I lift in jeans. I lift in cargo pants. Guess why? Because if somebody rolls their car and I got to flip it over their body, I'm not going to say, hey, guess what? Hold my coffee. Let me change into my workout gear. No, I'm just going to freaking get over there. I'm going to deadlift this son of a buck up, and you're going to scamper out of there. Like, that's the point. Also,
what are you, Hulk?
Yeah, don't
picking
matter.
up a car?
Yeah, it don't matter. It happens, man. You get that adrenaline going, like somebody's life's in danger. Boom. I remember in high school, I picked up the back end of a Mazda Miata. Somebody dared me to do that.
Were you there that night at AJ's when that girl had parked a little bit?
100%.
Okay,
that was amazing. Yeah.
So AJ lived on the corner of Neal and Norwich. If you go down Neal, take a left on Norwich, right behind the gas station there on Lane Avenue, across from Jesse Owens and the business school. We were sitting out there on his patio one night, and there was this little girl that pulled up her tiny little compact car, and it was kind of hanging out over top of his driveway,
which was very narrow.
We could not get around it. There was cement on the side to hold back the dirt. So he couldn't go around it. And so we're sitting there and someone had to leave. So it was you, me, I think Mangold. I don't know if AJ got involved or not. And we literally picked this thing up and we kind of slid it out into the road.
Yes.
And then we're going to slide it back. I thought she'd eventually come out of wherever she was and leave. And then eventually someone called a tow truck and she was trying to explain to him. The cop's like, dude, you're diagonal in the road. But hey, we had to make a way.
You had to make a way. Listen, don't park in front of fire hydrants. Don't have your bumper in the back end when somebody's trying to come out of a driveway, especially when it's really narrow that I probably, scrape my truck on multiple times. But that's gas station ready. Listen, at some point, guys, you're going to be at Sheetz driving home, right? Because they got 2 for $1 on ons. I get it. You got your Sheetz card. That's a little nicotine pouch right there. Anyways, you got to go.
You're onto the caffeine pouches.
No, I got caffeine pouches and nicotine pouches. We've been getting bumpy here all day, man. It's sometimes I haven't even eaten yet. No, we don't need to see that. Anyways, so, you're going to be up there. You're going to be filling up your truck with diesel, right? You're going in there for the, buy one, get one free ons over there at Sheetz. And somebody's going to be rolling up hey, we want to do some stuff. But you know what? No, they're going to see some boots, some jeans, big traps, and a thick cylinder. You know what? They're like, you know what? I don't want any part of that tonight.
Well, there's a great question here. We'll leave with this one.
Okay.
From the Ohio Bob podcast. I guess his name's Eric, which I don't know. It's
Eric.
a great question, Eric. So thank you for this.
What's Eric in Spanish?
Enrique?
Okay.
Maybe?
Iglesia.
Sure. As former Buckeyes, how much do you guys do when it comes to recruiting high school kids in the state of Ohio? It's a good question.
Right here. This is the guy right here.
So, I'm around the facility a lot. And so when guys come through, it's hey, can you get introduced to these guys? You talk to them. I'm getting old now. So usually it's their dad's oh, I remember you. I was in school when you were in school. It used to be the players yeah, a long time ago. Oh, it's this and that. I used to play. And they do have events, and they've done a great job. And Ryan leaned into this, and Mark Pantoni's been really good.
Yes.
They had an event at the Blackboard. They had a big recruiting night in the summer. It was a couple years ago. Yeah. And hey, anybody in town, can you come back? And so AJ, you, myself, we had, a handful of guys, I think Santonio came in. There was just a bunch of guys, probably 10 or 12 guys that were there, kind of one from every position group or a couple that were able to kind of talk about that and what it means to be part of the brotherhood, be a part of Ohio State.
Yeah, I think. And so I'll brag on Bob a little bit about this, but when guys come in and they don't, especially ones that want to go into business, Bob just talks a lot about the Fish College of business and going back and getting his MBA and all the stuff that he does in, the media, and what does that life look like after Ohio State? Because so many times they get focused on the here and now, but not all, but their parents want to know, but like, what does life look after football, and how is that school developing my son as a man, and where they can go after they're done playing? And obviously Ohio State has a lot of resources, a lot of great, departments within it, but like, you have to be able to articulate that and authentically show the added value of being a Buckeye.
Man, how does your life look? I thought, honestly, when I went to Ohio State, getting to play in the NFL, that it would be like kind of like Ice Cube talking about blunts, 40s, and Bs. That's not what the rest of my life has been like. So it's kind of been a raging disappointment ever since. So I'm sitting here doing this with this dude who kind of stinks right now. We're going to get in the sauna together. That's it for this edition of Tailgate Talk, brought to you by our friends at Real Truck. Go check them out at realtruck.com. We got slash. Yeah,
I don't know.
No slashes. All right, coming up, we got parting thoughts with one Mr. Anthony Schlegel.
Oh, man.
All right, Schlegs, you got 1 minute on the clock.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know where
the clock right there.
Is that the clock? 1 minute. So I get to go to 48:33?
Yes.
48:30. All right. So hey, here's my one thing, right? So, and it's about, let's talk about training. Have good partners. Good partners is where the magic happens. Because of when I train and the chaos that is my life, when I get to get back and I get to be around former guys, and again, I coached Brian Peters, I coached John Simon, I never coached Cade, but I was around Cade, and Cade's very similar to me.
Shotguns with Cade
with you at the farm. But it's like, it's just so fun, right? Like, you need to surround yourself with people that can sharpen you, that can add value to you. Because like, I left that, and like, even though my day has been absolutely chaos, I feel great. And that's what it's supposed to be about. I walked in the Armory this morning at 5:00, and there are people just great vibe, pushing each other, changing weights, talking shop. And I'm like, I ain't messing up your workout. I'm just dapping them up like, hey, man, I'm proud of you. Keep, consistent work works. Keep it going. And that's what it's about. Have good partners. Everybody get out there, start your fitness journey. Let's freaking make Ohio great again. Healthy again. Healthy. It's always great. Trust the Lieutenant Governor.
Okay, gosh. James just texted you. I'm guessing it's about him finding us on Twitter with 2 dudes, 1 camera. That's it for this edition.
2 dudes, 1 mic. Boom.
That's it for this edition of the Bobby Carpenter Show. We'll see you tomorrow at 12:30.